doesn't sound very Russian to me. However, his name was Martin. And Martin lived in a very simple house. And Martin was a shoemaker. And his house was also where he worked. It was his workshop. And so every day he would get out the boots and the shoes that needed to be repaired, and he would work on them over the day, and people would come to his house to drop them off and pick them up, and that was what his day was like. And at the end of each day, he would put away all his tools, he would stack the shoes that were still needing work in the corner, and he would bring out his lamp, and he would light his lamp, and he would have his dinner, and then after dinner, he always would read from the only book that he owned, and it was the Bible. And so he would sit in his chair by the fire, and he would read his Bible. Well, the one night, and what he really liked about it was he particularly liked the stories about Jesus and all of the ways that he helped people and the way he loved people. Didn't matter who they were, he always liked to look after people, and Martin liked those stories. Well, one evening, while he was reading, Martin, and I'm sure none of us have done this, but Martin actually fell asleep reading his book. And there he was, slouched over in his chair, all asleep. And just before he started to snore, he had this dream. And in his dream, Jesus suddenly appeared, and Jesus said to Martin, "Martin, I'm going to come and visit you tomorrow." And Martin, in his dream, was really, really excited because he always wanted to meet Jesus. And so Jesus said, "I want you to watch out your window because I am going to be going by. And so you watch for me tomorrow." And then he started to snore and he went completely asleep. Well, in the morning, he woke up, realized he was still in his chair, but he remembered the dream. He remembered, and he was so excited that he was going to meet Jesus. He was finally going to meet Jesus, this person that he admired so much. And so he had a really quick breakfast, and then he stood at his window and watched down the street. And the first person that he saw come by was this quite a man that was quite old, and he had a shovel, and he was shoveling the sidewalk down past all these houses, and he was shoveling it, as Martin saw me, he was shoveling Martin's front stoop. And so Martin looked at him and he thought, his coat's not very heavy, he must be really cold. So he went out to the man and he said, "Why don't you come in and get warm? My fire is burning, so come on in and get warm." And so the man very happily came in, and Martin made some tea, some nice hot tea, and brought out a fresh, warm loaf of bread. And so the two of them had this tea and bread and talked together, and the old man, after he had this, said, "This has been so great, thank you so much, this has just made my day, and I'm so warm now I can go out and finish my work." So he went off and continued shoveling down the road. And Martin, of course, then said, "I have to get back to my window because I still have to wait for Jesus." So he went back to his window and he's watching, and all of a sudden, down the road came this young mom, And she had a young baby in her arms, and she had a big wrap, and she was trying to keep the baby and herself warm in this wrap, but they were shivering, and the baby was crying. And Martin saw this, and he said, "Oh my goodness." And so he opened his door and he said, "Come in, you need to get warm, come in." And so she came into his house, and as they talked, Martin found out that her husband was in the army, and he was a long way away, and she really wanted to go and be with her husband, with the baby's father. But it was just too cold. And Martin looked at her and said, "Well, you don't have a good coat." And he said, "But I have a coat. It's old, but it's warm, and I don't need it. It's an extra one." So he gave her a big warm coat that covered her and the baby and made sure that they were really warm. And she was so thankful, and she hugged Martin, and she headed off to bring her family back together. And then Martin said, "Oh, I still have to watch for Jesus." So he went back, and he's looking out the window and isn't seeing Jesus at all. And then all of a sudden he sees this woman coming down the road, and she's got a basket of apples, and she's got a young boy, and she's holding him by his neck because he's trying to run away, and he's got an apple in his hand. And Martin knows something's gone wrong, so he goes out and he says, "What's happened here?" And the woman said, "This boy stole an apple from me, and I'm wanting it back, and so I'm taking him to the police so that I can get my apple back." And Martin thought about it for a minute, and he said to the woman, "Let the boy go. I'll pay for the apple, because it looks like he really needs it. He's hungry." And then he turned to the boy and he said, "You know it's not right to steal, right? That you shouldn't have stolen the apple." And the little boy said, "Yes, I know that." Well, they talked for a bit, and the woman ended up saying, "You can keep the apple." And the two of them went off together, no longer upset with each other. Martin went back and stood at his window, still waiting for Jesus. The day ended, it turned into night. He lit his lamp again, he had some supper, he picked up his Bible, and he was really, really upset because Jesus hadn't come, even though in the dream Jesus said he would come. And, believe it or not, for a second night in a row, he fell asleep again, reading. And he had another dream. And in the dream, Jesus was speaking to him and said, "Martin, I came to see you today, and how much I loved being your guest." And Martin went, it was time for them to sleep too. And Martin said, "I waited all day for you. I waited all day for you, and you never turned up. What do you mean? You were my guest." And Jesus said to him, When you gave that man that was shoveling the snow some tea, that was me. And when you gave that coat to that young woman that was needing to be warm, that was me. And when you helped settle a quarrel, that was me. And Martin, instead of snoring and going to sleep, suddenly woke up, and he said, "Now I get it. Now I understand." I wonder how Martin felt when he thought that Jesus was going to come and visit him. Good? Well, because Jesus was going to visit people, it'd be kind of exciting, wouldn't it, to think that might happen. And I wonder how Martin felt helping all those people. Good? Yeah, probably good. Yeah. Well, that's our story for today. And we're going to sing a song about a dream, because sometimes that's how we feel God. And it's called I Am the Dream and You Are the Dreamer. And then after that, you're welcome to go to Children's Church, and I'm sure there'll be something really fine to be doing there. I am the dream.